Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So as you guys are aware, this weekend for boxing is relatively quiet. There are no high profile cards going on or anything like that. The main card being in the UK. It's actually a Frank Warren card on BT Sports in the UK at the Wembley Arena in London, and I felt it appropriate to go through this card and give a little preview, I guess I would say. Now, it's headlined by Joyce versus Christian Hammer. Now, this fight in itself isn't anything to write home about. I am glad to see Joyce back in the ring. I find him very entertaining, but you know, this is not the fight in which we wanted for Joyce. Now, it's not Joyce's fault. We know the scenario. He was supposed to be fighting Joseph Parker this summer, but Joseph Parker essentially weaseled his way out of that fight. He instead signed with Boxer and Sky Sports, which was very disappointing. But you know, I mean, Joyce hasn't fought for a little while now. Joyce needs to stay active, and he's fighting Christian Hammer. It is what it is. Christian Hammer at his very best was I guess he was a low-level fringe contender. These days, though, he is more so a glorified journeyman, I would say. He's essentially this generation's Kevin Johnson now. He's awkward, he's a spoiler, he's hard to knock out, he doesn't really come to fight anymore. So maybe Joyce will get some rounds in, but there is no chance here of an upset unless Joyce's arms fall off. For whatever reason, he is not going to lose this fight. He potentially might get some rounds, but he'll win this fight comfortably. So the main event, listen, the main event isn't great, has to be said, but let's move on. The undercard, however, actually is pretty good. There's a couple of fights I'm really looking forward to here. At Super Bantamweight, Jason Cunningham versus Zolane Tete. Now, this fight to me is very interesting. Jason Cunningham's a guy who's been around the domestic scene for quite some time, and you know, he's fallen short quite a lot, but in recent years he's had a renaissance in his career. He's picked up some really good results at domestic level. Of course, he beat Gamal Yafai, he beat Brad Foster, who was unbeaten, and he won the British and European titles, and he recently defended his European title against an unknown Frenchman. So Jason Cunningham is coming off the best form of his career, whereas Zolane Tete is looking for an opportunity to get back to the big time. Zolane Tete, of course, was a former bantamweight champion, and he actually, at his best, Zolane Tete is a really slick boxer, good mover, but he carries power as well. He's one of those guys, when he's in his rhythm, he boxes very well. And, you know, I recall him coming to the UK once before and brutally knocking out Paul Butler after outboxing him. To me, that was his best performance. Zolane Tete can really box, but I do question his chin. You know, in the Casemiro fight, as soon as he got hit, he basically fell to bits, and he quickly got stopped in that fight. So he's on the comeback trail now, looking to get back into the big time, like I said. And as for Jason Cunningham, he's had his renaissance in his career, and he wants to see how good he is and whether he can get to the next level. So, to me, this fight makes a lot of sense for both guys, considering where they're at in their careers. It's a hard one to call, really, because Cunningham is as good as he's ever been, whereas Tete is coming off inactivity and a bad loss. So it's hard to call. How much does Tete have left? We shall see. I would still make Tete a favourite in this fight, quite frankly. Jason Cunningham, he's not the biggest puncher in the world. That could be a problem here. Jason Cunningham is a southpaw himself, and he likes to box, he likes to move, he likes to keep the distance. He can, you know, he's a pretty capable boxer, and I'm not sure whether he can win that sort of fight against Zolane Tete. Tete himself is, of course, a southpaw. He's 5'9". He's extremely tall and rangy. He's the taller man here, so I'm not sure whether Jason Cunningham can win a boxing match against Zolane Tete. In fact, I don't think he can. So I think he's got to switch it up in this fight and essentially try to get to Tete. But I think it's an interesting matchup, and to me, it makes perfect sense for both guys right now. But, you know, we shall see how this fight goes. We also have a really good fight as well at light heavyweight. Callum Johnson versus Igor Mikhalkin. Callum Johnson, of course, a former British light heavyweight champion, former world title challenger. He, of course, fought Beterbiev, where he dropped Beterbiev, hurt him, but eventually got knocked out. Igor Mikhalkin, he's been around the European scene for quite some time. He himself has had a world title fight against Sergey Kovalev, where he got knocked out in the mid-rounds. So both guys have come up short at the elite level, but both guys have been pretty good fighters in and around European level for a few years now. This is basically winner stays on. Igor Mikhalkin, as you can see, is 37 years old, coming off a loss, whereas Callum Johnson himself is around 37 as well. 36 years old. So both guys are at the end of their careers. Both guys are looking to have one more final run at the elite in the light heavyweight division. So it's all on the line here. Callum Johnson is the harder puncher of the two, whereas Igor Mikhalkin is more of a natural boxer. He's a southpaw, as you can see, likes to box and move sometimes. He can switch things up. He can trade, he can throw punches in bunches, he can box, he's more versatile, but Callum is the more powerful man, so it's going to be interesting to see where this fight goes. Callum Johnson, he's not looked particularly great in his last couple of fights. He arguably lost this fight here against Server Umalayev, and Umalayev was boxing and moving, and he gave Callum Johnson a really hard fight. And even the Emil Markic fight, yes, he won this fight by a second round stoppage, but Callum Johnson was badly hurt in this fight, so Callum's not been looking good in recent fights. But again, Igor Mikhalkin lost his last fight by retirement for the European title against Mathieu Bordelic. So both guys aren't exactly looking great coming into this fight. So to me, that makes it interesting. You know, both guys are looking vulnerable. Both guys are getting on in age, but it's a good matchup. It's an even matchup. I would slightly lean towards Callum Johnson, but not really confident in that. But to me, that means it's a good fight. That means it's a good fight. It should be competitive. Deeper down on the card, we have Nathan Heaney. He is fighting a guy called Nizar Trimech. Again, Nathan Heaney, he's got an unbeaten record of 15-0. But he's basically just a ticket seller. He's not a particularly great fighter. He is entertaining, but he's nothing special. In my opinion, Nathan Heaney is not even British level, quite frankly. If you look at the British scene right now, I don't think he beats the likes of Denzel Bentley or Felix Cash. I think he gets smashed by those guys, to be real. But I mean, it is what it is. Mark Chamberlain, he is fighting Mark Vidal. Mark Chamberlain is a decent lightweight prospect. He's relatively heavy-handed. As you can see, 7 knockouts in 10 fights. I have seen a little bit of Mark Chamberlain, and he is decent. So we'll see what he does here. Mark Vidal's, he's quite experienced. He's campaigned at European level in the lower weights, as you can see. Got a technical draw against Kiko Martinez, though that was at featherweight. This is at lightweight, I believe, so he's the smaller man, but he is experienced. We shall see how Mark Chamberlain fares there. And other than that, you've got some young prospects on the card. I've heard a lot about Tommy Fletcher. He's a big dude. I believe he's like 6'6", and he's a cruiserweight. He's a big dude from what I've been told, and apparently he's a massive puncher, so we shall see how Tommy Fletcher gets on. But all in all, I think it's a decent card. I'm not a big fan of these BT cards in general. They're usually pretty weak when it comes to regular BT. But I think this is certainly acceptable. There's a couple of really good fights on this card. Really interesting fights in which I'm looking forward to. Yeah, the Joyce fight's a mismatch, but that is what it is. We know the circumstances behind that. But yeah, all in all, I think it's a pretty decent card. What about you guys? What do you think about this card? Anything that you're looking forward to in particular? I think in terms of pure fan excitement, it's Callum Johnson versus Igor Mikhalkin. but I'm very intrigued about Jason Cunningham versus Zolane Tete. But I'll make my picks right now. I've got Tete on points against Cunningham, and I've got Callum Johnson late stoppage against Igor Mikhalkin. Those are my picks for the two interesting fights. Joyce, I would say stoppage rounds 4 to 6, something along those lines. But anyway, share your thoughts below. I know this video sounds super rushed. It is, but what can I do? You know, I've got a lot on right now. Share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Del Boy.